Hello, class. Welcome back again. We are looking at the subject English language, and our topic today is clauses. Clauses. Before we move further to talk about clauses, let's look at differences between a clause and a phrase so that it will aid your understanding of a clause. A clause is a group of words containing a subject and a finite verb. A clause is a group of words containing a subject and a finite verb. It can express a complete thought, independent clause, or be dependent on another clause, known as subordinate clause. So it says that a clause is a word or words that contains a subject and a finite verb. For it say it can express a complete thought. When a clause expresses a complete thought, it is known as independent clause. But when a clause expresses an incomplete thought, it is known as dependent or subordinate clause. For example, she sings beautifully. She sings beautifully is a complete thought. Therefore, we call it independent clause. Because she was tired, it's an incomplete thought. Then we name it subordinate clause. Phrase. A phrase is a group of words that work together but do not contain a subject and a finite verb. It says it's a group of words that work together but do not contain a subject and a finite verb. Example, in the garden. In the garden is a sentence, but it doesn't express a complete thought because it lacks a subject and a finite verb. There is no subject here, the performer of an action. There is no action here as well. So that makes it a phrase. Running late. It lacks subject. It lacks a verb. There is no action performed. There is no performer of an action. For example, let's look at these two sentences here, a phrase and a clause. Running down the hill. Running down the hill. It's an incomplete thought. It's a sentence, but it's incomplete because it lacks a subject. Remember that we say that a clause must contain a subject, performer of an action, action performed, and the receiver. So, phrase here says running down the hill. Who is running down the hill or what is running down the hill? It didn't tell us. But clause here signifies everything or clarifies everything. She was running down the hill. She was running down the who is running down the hill? She was running down the hill. Did you not see the performer of an action is here? Finite verb is also here. She is the subject. Was is the finite verb. Meaning of a clause. A clause is a group of words that contain a subject, a predicate, and a finite verb. A clause is a group of words that contain a subject, a predicate, and a finite verb. That is, a clause must contain a subject, a predicate, and a finite verb. It also says that it may or may not express a complete thought. When a clause expresses a complete thought, it is known as independent clause. But when a clause expresses an incomplete thought, it is known as a dependent or a subordinate clause. For example, she sings beautifully. She sings beautifully is a complete thought. Therefore, we named it independent clause. When she sings beautifully, when she sings beautifully, if I'm the one telling you this, you will need me to tell you more because to you I still have something to say. But as I stopped here, it's an incomplete thought. Therefore, we named it dependent clause. We named it dependent clause or subordinate clause. Then key differences between phrase and a clause. Key differences between a phrase and a clause. Look at these features. Feature number one says contains subject. Phrase doesn't contain any subject, but clause contains a subject. Feature number two says contains finite verb. Phrase doesn't contain any finite verb, but clause contains a finite verb. Feature number three says Phrase doesn't contain or expresses a complete thought, but clause sometimes, when it is an independent clause, expresses a complete thought. When a clause is an independent clause, it expresses a complete thought. But when it is a dependent clause, it doesn't express a complete thought. That is why we say sometimes. For example, look at this sentence here. Under the tree. Under the tree. There is no verb here. There is no subject. So this sentence is a phrase. The boy ran quickly. The boy ran quickly. This is a clause because there is a subject and a verb. The boy is a subject. Ran is a verb. So key features of a clause. Key features of a clause. A clause must contain a subject. A subject is the performer of an action. Who did what or what did this is a subject, the performer of an action. A clause must contain a predicate. A predicate describes what the subject is doing, being, or experiencing. Predicate describe is this predicate that will not tell you what the subject is doing, or who the subject is, or what the subject is experiencing. Then, a clause must contain a finite verb. A finite verb shows tense, person, or number. Finite verb will show you when the subject performs the action. How many times the person performs it. The finite verb will not tell you, is it a person? Is it an object? So that is the work of finite verb in a clause. Then a clause can stand alone if it is an independent clause. But it can rely on another clause if it is a dependent or subordinate clause. Examples of a finite verb. She writes every day. She writes every day. Present tense, singular subject. She is the singular subject. Writes is a present tense. They played football. Past tense, plural subject. They is the plural subject. Played is the past tense. In a clause, the finite verb is essential to indicate time or subject agreement. The subject must agree with the tenses. It must agree with the tenses. Like when we say she writes, you cannot say she writes. She writes because it's a singular subject. In the clause, if I were rich, where is the finite verb? Remember that where is the plural of was. Where is the plural of well? The subject agreement here is I were. You cannot say I was. I was rich. If I were rich, you cannot say if I was rich. If I were rich. So I and where agrees with the subject. Where agrees with the subject. If I were rich, where is the finite verb here? So types of clauses. Types of clauses. Number one type of a clause is independent clause. Independent clause. A clause that expresses a complete thought and can stand alone as a sentence is known as an independent clause. When a clause expresses a complete thought and stands on its own, it is known as an independent clause. Example: the boy ran fast. The boy ran fast. Number two, dependent or subordinate clause. A subordinate clause is a clause that does not express a complete thought and it depends on the main clause. It depends on the main clause for it to give you a complete thought. For example, although the boy ran fast is a dependent or subordinate clause. Although the boy ran fast, for it to give you a complete thought, that means you go and get a main clause to attach to it for it to give us a complete thought. As you are seeing it here, although the boy ran fast, he could not win the race. He could not win the race is the main clause. It can stand on its own. But although the boy ran fast, cannot. Because it will not give you a complete thought because it is a dependent clause. Then types of a subordinate clauses. Types of a subordinate clauses. The subordinate clauses are classified based on their functions. The functions. Number one type of a subordinate clause is a noun clause. Noun clause. Noun clause functions as a noun. It can be The subject, object, or complement in a sentence can be a performer of an action, a receiver of an action, or what describes what the subject is doing. Example, what she said surprised everyone. What she said surprised everyone is a subject. Subject, what she said, she. She is now the subject, is the performer of the action. He knows that he will succeed. He knows that he will succeed is the object. The object of the sentence here is he. He will. He will. That is the receiver of the action. He knows. Then the number two types of subordinate clause is an adjectival clause. Adjectival clause modifies a noun or pronoun. It describes a noun or pronoun. It often begins with relative pronouns. Who, whose, which, that. Who, whose, with, that. Example, the girl who won the prize is my sister. The girl who won the prize, the girl that did what, who won the prize. Who is the relative pronoun here. So it's an adjectival clause. Who is an adjectival clause that modifies the noun girl. Number three is adverbial clause. Adverbial clause. Adverbial clause functions as an adverb, modifying a verb, adjective, or another adverb. Functions as an adverb, modifying a verb, adjective, or another adverb. Indicates time, place, condition, manner, cause, or a purpose. For example, because he studied hard, he passed the exam. Because he studied hard, he passed the exam. What is the cause of him passing his exam? Because he studied hard. Adverbial clause of cause. I will wait until you arrive. That is the adverbial clause of a time. I will wait until you arrive. What is the time here? Until you arrive. I will not leave until you arrive. What time will you leave until you arrive? Then let's look at functions of clauses. Functions of clauses. Clauses perform various functions in sentences. Clauses perform various functions in sentences. Number one functions of a clause is subject. Subject. Whoever comes first will win a prize. In this sentence now, what is the subject there? Whoever comes first. Who will win the prize? Whoever comes first. That is the subject. The performer of the action. Whoever comes first will win a prize. Number two functions of a class is object. She knows what she wants. She knows what she wants. The object is here, what she wants, that receive the object. Receiver of an action. She knows. What she wants, receive the action she knows. So what she wants is the object here. Number three, complement. Complement describes. It describes the subject or the object. The problem is that he doesn't study. The problem is that he doesn't study. It describes the problem. What is the problem here? That he doesn't study. That is the complement. That he doesn't study. That describes the problem. The modifier also describes the subject. The man who is standing there is my uncle. The man who is standing there is my uncle. The man, there are many men there. But for me to know the one that you are talking about, you have to describe the man or modify the man by telling me the particular one. Thereby saying who is standing, the man who is standing. It's not the one that is sitting. It's not the one that is walking. Rather, it is the one who is standing. That is the functions of clauses. It functions as a subject, object, complement, or a modifier. So, with this, our lessons come to an end. Remember that we discussed about clause. Say that we have two types of clauses: independent and dependent or subordinate clause. Under subordinate clauses, we have three types: noun clause, adjectival clause, and adverbial clause. Then, the key features of a clause must contain a subject, a predicate, and a finite verb. Then, we look at the functions of a clauses. Thank you. See you in our next class.